What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and today we're going to go over all the skills and effects from the characters that they recently showed in the Korean Livestream, starting with Meliodas. Now, Meliodas is a yellow defensive fighter. There's also a green attack, but this is the only one they showed in the Korean Livestream. And they're all Fest characters, so they're all going to be cost 63. And his leadership gives him a 55% increase of all attack to any of the 7 Deadly Sins characters, which is just like Katsura or Haomaru. And then he's immune to stun, which is freaking awesome. And then each time you attack an enemy, the penetration is increased by 300 and lasts 5 seconds, up to 5 times. So that means he's going to have an extra 1500 penetration. He's going to be weakening the defenses of his opponents, therefore enabling him to do more damage. And then when he's attacking in the dark state, active skill damage is increased by 35%, which is great, more damage. And then when attacked by flight pipe type skills, I'm not really sure if flight pipe type means blast or strike skills. I'm not really sure which one that is, but there's a 20% chance of odds of rebounding 50% of the damage, which I believe means 20% chance of reflecting 15% of the damage. If I'm reading this wrong, please correct me in the comments. On a 15-second cooldown. And then it says when HP, and it goes, when HP is 50% or more, the attack increases by 10%, damage increases by 10%. This is a 7 Deadly Sins core effect, and when attacked, there's a 10% chance of getting 10% air. I'm not really sure what air means. And then on skill 1, the attack is increased by 29%. This lasts for 7 seconds, including when they're guarding, and the skill ends, the character will get stunned. So what this means is whenever you hit an opponent with skill 1, as soon as your skill ends, so I believe this is going to be just like what it is with Shane, where say you cancel this skill, you just hit your guard, it'll automatically stun the opponent because you get the stun after the skill ends. And you're going to stun them for 2 seconds, which is going to be terrific against all opponents unless they're immune to stun. And then skill 2, when the skill hits, it has a Blackatus, which means darkness effect on the target, which lasts for 6 seconds. That is great. You got long-lasting dot damage, 30% of the attack damage, dark damage, and 2% reduction in air volume per second. I believe what this means is PG consumption, and I believe is what this means. So I'm thinking the 2% reduction in air volume per second means the PG consumption. I think it means that he's going to be reducing their PG by 2%, but I'm not really sure. Sometimes this translation is a little out of whack. I'm not really exactly sure what this means, but when the PvP specific active skill hits the enemy in overload or hyper state, which means super armor or hyper armor, there's a 60% chance of disarming the enemy's overload or hyper state. So when you do skill 2, you have a 60% chance of removing their hyper armor or super armor, which is meta. It is meta. It's looking very likely that Meliodas is definitely going to be a PvP character, although I still think he's probably going to be really good in PvE game modes. And then his third skill gives him hyper armor, which is great, and it's an interrupt skill on top of that, which means if he's getting knocked around, as long as he's standing up, he can actually use the skill and he'll have a hyper armor at the same time. Pretty powerful looking character in all honesty. So if we watch him here a little bit, here we go. And this is a fast skill. This is a skill with the stun right here. Very quick. Actually, he does that skill so fast, you probably won't even have to cancel it. And then you have the darkness. And that's the skill that can actually remove hyper armor or super armor. And then you got the third skill, and that's an interrupt skill as well. Really fast character, man. He can move. And being a defensive character, he's going to have a lot of good defensive stats. He's going to be able to take a lot of damage. And then if you notice, his default just applied darkness, just like Dellen's. Now, I don't know if he's going to be better than Dellen because Dellen's actually an attack type. And he benefits from Orochiori's leadership, who is what we're going to use in Guild Raid. So I don't know if he's going to replace him, but he'll still probably be really good. And then we get down to Ban. Now, Ban is a purple attack type, of course, Fest character, and then he has leadership and increased character attack by 45% and attack speed increased by 5%, which is really good. When his HP is less than 1%, the trigger damage is invalidated for 5 seconds, which means he's got the same thing as Lady Brienne, where he gets immunity for 5 seconds when he gets down to 1% HP, which can be pretty OP in all honesty. And then you have the PvP specific active skill hits, lift the enemy attack force buff effect, and their own attack power increased by 35%, continued for 5 seconds when HP is 50% or more. And this is the same old 7 Deadly Sins core effect. This is going to be on all of them. And then skill 1, when the skill hits, the target damage increases by 20%, so you got a nice attack buff. And when the skill hits for 7 seconds, there's a 100% risk of ignoring the enemy's defensive state, which means he has a 100% chance to ignore their guard, which is great. That's terrific. And then skill 2, when the skill is used, trigger the Overlord, which means super armor that lasts for 3 seconds and reduced by 50%, which means he has a damage reduction by 50% in his super armor state. That's going to last for 3 seconds, and it's an interrupt skill on top of that. Very meta, but as you can see, the only immunity that he has is from his 1% HP core, which that's kind of a bum deal in all honesty. But it is nice to get the decreased damage received, but I really wish it had been more than 50%. I mean, the guy is immortal in the manga and the anime. And then skill 3, the skill is used. There's 100% odds of that skill cooling time to be reset. So he actually has a reset on skill 3 also. So let's check him out. Bane looks really cool. Really like the way he looks. We're going to skip along and go straight to the motions here where we can watch him fight a little bit. Hey, we're just waiting on these guys. There we go. That's pretty cool, man. He takes like the nunchaku weapon and slashes it forward. And that's got a lot of range to it as well. Very nice looking skill. The second skill is pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man. Knocks him up in the air and starts beating the crap out of him. And that's an interrupt skill on top of that. So anytime you're facing an opponent that doesn't have super armor or hyper armor up, you can knock them up in the air and knock them around. And if they have an interrupt skill, they can't get out of it because they're going to be off the ground. He's fast. He's got some good movement speed. He's really quick. I mean, he's fast. We'll see. We'll see. I'm a little worried about Ban, in all honesty, as far as his survivability. I mean, 50% decreased damage received is good, but it's only for 3 seconds. Cool looking skill there. Nice, nice. Oh yeah, check this out. Nice. Nice, nice. Let's watch that again. By the way, I don't think that's a nunchaku. I think it's a different... There's another name for that weapon. So, Bane looks pretty good, but I am a little worried about his survivability. I mean, decreased damage received by 50%. It's okay. It's decent, but even characters that have a higher decreased damage received, like The Rock, can actually die in the Immortal Dungeons. So if that's a place you plan on using this guy, I don't know how well he's going to survive. We'll see. We'll see. And then we have King, who looks freaking OP as hell. He's a yellow balance type fighter. He has an amazing leadership that has the yellow increased attack fighter by 45%, and then the PG gain by 20%. And we all know how massive PG rate is in the leadership role. Very, very meta. And then petrochemicals are invalid, which means he can't be petrified. He's immune to petrify. So when he's facing a character like Pretty Zero, Mukai, Lady Kim, you don't have to worry about getting petrified. And when attack enemies cannot use strike skills for 4 seconds. So any character that has strike skills, they can't use them for 4 seconds, which if their strike skills are hyper armors or super armors, I mean, this guy can go in and go for the kill. That's pretty powerful stuff. And then when attacking an enemy in a sacred state, which means starlight damage, the remaining damage of the target increases by 2.2 times, which means he has Starlight Explosion. So he's the first character with Starlight Explosion. He's a yellow balance. And being that he's a yellow and being that he has Explosion means he's probably going to be amazing for Immortal Most, where yellow types have the advantage. The PG rate leadership is going to be massive. He's going to be really damn good for it. I can pretty much guarantee that already. And this is just the regular 7 Deadly Sins core effect. Skill 1. His attack damage is increased by 45% and it lasts for 7 seconds. When the skill hit, he gets a 30% increased attack based on the starlight damage that he's dealing for 7 seconds. So this isn't a starlight damage that you just hit and go like what Mion has. This is actually lasting damage. So you could actually use this guy in lunatic mode for guild raid. However, he is a balanced type fighter. And a lot of players are going to be using SSMI, which only applies to female fighters. But you could use Rugal. I mean, that's the character that I use, and he would actually work with Rugal. However, we already have 2 other characters that apply Starlight. So we'll see how relevant that's going to be, how strong he's going to be, or how good he's going to be. And then his skill 2, when attack hits, including the defensive state, which means guarding, there's a 30% chance that the skill cooldown time will be reset. So he has a 30% chance of resetting skill 2, and then skill 3 gives him hyper armor, and it also has Starlight damage on it, which is crazy. So he has 2 different skills that have Starlight. That's really, really good. The 30% chance of resetting skills isn't really that great. I wish that was higher, in all honesty. I really wish that was like 50 to 70%, or really 100% would be the best, but maybe that would be just too OP. I mean, after you watch this guy, you might think to yourself, man, he's pretty damn strong looking. So we're just going to go ahead and skip. He looks really great. I love the expression on his face here. Now look at his skills. That is a long range attack. Bigger than crap. Pretty fast too. I honestly think this guy's going to be really good for PvP. Wow. That's beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful. And this second skill is vicious. And I bet you anything that spear will hit you from anywhere in the screen, kind of like Orochi's skills that hit you from the top. And it has Petrify on top of that, which is crazy. So he's got Starlight damage on 2 different skills. He's got Petrify on his second skill. And there you see that Starlight again. And all of these skills look like range attacks. And he has Hyper Armor on top of that. Very powerful looking character. Wow. Wait till you see his 3PG. It's freaking nuts. And we'll see if you can escape that. Maybe if you get behind him, you can. I'm not really sure. We'll have to wait and see. This is dope. Look at this thing. This is so cool. Now, that looks like a skill you might be able to escape, get behind, but we'll have to wait and see. And that is exactly, I mean, you'll see that actually in the first season of the 7 Deadly Sins Season 1. Then we have Diana. And Diana is a red defensive fighter. It really looks like a lot of these characters are really more PvP oriented. When I start seeing all these defensive fighters, that makes me think that they're more PvP oriented characters. However, you just never know until you actually start playing with characters how good they're going to be in certain game modes. And she has a 40% increase in defensive roll attack and 50% increase in defense. So she's given a 40% increase to defensive fighters and increasing their defense on 50%, which is actually an amazing leadership for defensive fighters. And then she has, when HP is more than 50% or under attack, the damage is reduced by 70%. That's going to make her very tanky and last for 3 seconds on a 15-second cooldown. And then when her HP is less than 49% and under attack, the trigger damage is invalidated, which means immune for 3 seconds. So she's going to have a 3-second immunity in her core effect on a 15-second cooldown. So as long as she's above 50% HP, she'll get this decreased damage received by 70% every 15 seconds. And when she's below 49% HP, she'll get this immunity every 15 seconds. And then attack the enemy in dizziness, which means stun, causes an additional 150%. So whenever opponents are stunned, she's going to do a lot more damage to them. This is, again, the 7 Deadly Sins core effect. It's the same on all of them. And then you got skill 1, which has a interrupt skill, which is amazing. And it does have super armor. Her only immunity is actually from her core. And then her second skill, when the skill hits, including defensive state, which means when they're guarding, the enemy's defenses is reduced by 30%. So you're actually weakening them whenever you hit them with this skill. And even if they're guarding, you're still going to weaken them. So the only way for them to avoid this is to dodge you. And then after 7 seconds of the skill hit, including defensive state, the enemy is dizzy for 2 seconds. So once she hits them with skill 2, after 7 seconds, even if they're guarding, they're still going to get stunned. So when you're playing her, you're going to have to keep that in mind. And then skill 3, when using attack force damage skill, turn 45% of its own defenses into attack forces. So she gets an attack buff based off her defenses. And when the enemy hits, including defensive state, for 7 seconds, the enemy cannot avoid them for 4 seconds, which means they cannot dodge. So she has a disabled dodge on her third skill, which is really great, especially since she's got a stun on her skill 2. That's actually very, very meta. So let's check her out. Diana looking good, looking good. We're going to go ahead and get to the good stuff here. There's that super armor. Nice. Puts him on the ground. I wish she slapped him up in the air, in all honesty. It'd be better for combos. Oh, see, no, you get that stun pretty much immediately. I mean, that's a good range attack, too. Players will probably be able to dodge that, though. And then you got this skill. This skill kind of leaves them in a, like a suspended animation. They're just kind of sitting there. I really wish it knocked them up in the air. I wish both their first and third skill did that. Now, I was a little disappointed when I saw this because why isn't Diana big? I thought this was silly. Like, at least for her PG, at least for her default and her ultimate skill, you at least have her super big, right? But they don't do that. They actually have her the same size as the rest of them. Now, in her 3PG, you can definitely imagine her being massive and large. But in her, for her default finisher, I really thought she should have been big. I thought that was kind of crappy on their part. And then you have Merlin, who looks like a really big standout character in this collab, who is a blue balance type fighter. And then she gives an increase 45% to attack to the 7 deadly sins character. And I believe this is going to be a PG rate increase. I'm not really sure. It says air intake, but I'm pretty sure it's PG rate increase for all the 7 deadly sins characters. So that's freaking an insane leadership. We'll have to see how effective that's going to be, but that's pretty damn awesome. And then when attacking an enemy in frozen state and hitting it after 4 seconds, make the enemy frozen for 2 seconds. Wow. Lots of crowd control. And when attacking an enemy in the frozen state, it will cause an additional 170% damage to all enemies on the field. So she gets a massive damage buff whenever they're frozen. And then attack hit, the target causes 40% of the attack force burn, frostbite, dark, injury. So this here looks like she has multiple different dot effects is what it looks like to me. You're seeing dark, we're seeing frostbite, burn, and then random attached and abnormal injury, which means that it's going to be random dot effects that's going to apply from her core, and then the rest of this just the regular Yentama core passive. And then you have skill 1, where the skill hits, there's a 30% chance of, and it just has question marks. It says skill 2 to reset. So whenever you hit the first skill, it can reset the second skill, if I'm reading this correctly. And when the PvP specific skill hits, the buff effect of the target active skill cannot be started and lasts for 4 seconds. So what this means is, it's kind of like Leona, where you use the skill, they can't use their buff effects for 4 seconds. That is very, very powerful, especially for PvP. Then skill 2, she has hyper armor, and then attaches a cold current effect to the enemy for 6 seconds, which means she's going to have chill damage or frostbite, whatever you want to call it, 30% frostbite damage per second, and then 10% reduction in attack speed. So she's going to slow her opponent down, and 10% reduction in movement speed. Very strong. And then skill 3, damage to the enemy, damage reduced by 70%. So she's a blue balance. She's got a decreased damage received on a skill that lasts for 4 seconds when the skill hit. There's a 100% chance of ignoring the enemy's defenses, which means she's going to ignore their guard. She's got a 100% chance to ignore their guard. And then the enemy costs 27% of the attack force per second. So she gets a nice attack buff per second for any of the dot effects that she applies. I mean, look at this. She can apply burn, bleed, shock, poison, frostbite. Wow. I mean, she seems like she's going to be a very, very versatile character. And when you look at this girl, Lord have mercy, my friends. Look at her. Lord have mercy. That's all I can say. And get a load of her skills. I love how she floats around. Look at that range attack. You see how fast that thing moved? Oh my God. So unless you have some good timing, you're going to have trouble avoiding that unless you're good at dodging. And look at that skill. There's that hyper armor, and look at how fast she moves. And that looks like it's going to have a lot of range as well, on top of applying dot effect, applying chill. And this third skill is freaking amazing. Look at that. There you see some bleed. It can apply any type of dot effect. That is freaking cool. And it looks like a range attack. And when I saw the actual gameplay of them playing her against other opponents, it looked like that skill would kind of sit in motion at the end for a while. We'll have to wait and see, but I love this freaking default. Look at that default. Come on now. That is freaking dope. This is dope. Do it again, my friends. Okay, they're not doing it again. And this is freaking amazing too. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, 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 wow. Very, very cool skill. I'm loving it. And then you have Dancing Elizabeth with Hawk. And she is a purple balance type fighter. And she gives an increased balance character attack increased by 40% and strike rate increased by 7%. So decent leadership. They all got decent leadership, some better than others, but still pretty good. And then darkness is invalid. She is immune to darkness. When attacking an enemy, it causes 65% of sacred damage to the attack force, which means she has starlight damage. So we have two characters with starlight. And then skill 1, when hit, there's a 50% chance that the flight prop type skill cooldown time resets. So I believe that I think it means strike skills. What I think it means, I could be wrong. It might mean blast. I think it means strike skills though. So her strike skills, there's a 50% chance that they could reset from a core on a 20-second cooldown. And then when the skill is used, trigger the overload. So she has super armor on skill 1 that lasts for 3 seconds. And when the PvP specific skill hits, remove the buff effect from a target active skill. And we all know how strong that is, guys. That's just like Adelheid and Xion, where they can remove hyper armor, remove super armor, all that good stuff, my friends. That is very, very powerful. And then skill 2, force increase. She gets an attack power increased by 30% with an 80% risk of ignoring the enemy's defensive state when a skill hits for 7 seconds. So she has an 80% chance of ignoring their guard with skill 2, which is pretty awesome. And she's got a nice attack buff on it as well. And then skill 3, she reduces damage received by 85%. That is crazy. 85% is a freaking lot. And this lasts for 3 seconds. The target caused a highly toxic effect, lasts 6 seconds, 35% of the defense per second, poison damage, so she has poison damage as well, and the amount of gas obtained reduced by 80%. So she reduces PG gain by 80% is what she does. So if we watch old girl, she looks great. Elizabeth looks really awesome. We're just going to get to the good stuff here. Very nice, very nice. And there's that super armor. It looks like it might be a short range attack. We'll have to wait and see, but I like that it knocks them up in the air, which is good for combos. Now that second skill is definitely a range attack. Hawk's going to run all the way across the screen doing that skill. And it does continuous hits, which is actually really good. And then the third skill, Hawk kind of puts a little snort out of his nose and poisons them. That's freaking hilarious. That is hilarious. I don't know if that's the snot or snort. It's kind of disgusting, but goes all the way across the screen. We'll have to see. And then Elizabeth jumps on Hawk, and that's kind of, it's pretty funny. I almost would have expected something a little bit different from watching the first season. No spoilers. But let's take a look at that finisher. I really love how Elizabeth stands there in that pose. I really like the pose she has, you know, all innocent looking, because that is the nature of her character. So unfortunately it's kind of hard to see the skill, but pretty cool from what we can see. So all in all, I'm really happy with everything that I'm seeing here. These characters look very strong, and it's going to be interesting to see how well they're going to play out in the current meta in PvP and PvE. You know, I am a little worried about Ben as far as the survivability, but you never know. You know, he might be so damn strong. He might have so much attack power. We don't know what kind of imprint stones they're going to get. We don't know what kind of card sets these characters are going to get. There's a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of details that are being left out right now. So it's hard telling what's going to happen with these characters, but we can all rest assured that they're going to be very damn strong. They're all going to be very useful, and I'm interested to see what you all think about all of these skill sets, their animations, how they look. Personally, guys, I'm super happy. I'm really loving this update so far. I mean, except for the elephants in the room that I've talked about in the previous videos. But other than that, I'm super, super happy with everything that I'm seeing. So let me know how y'all feeling about the 7 Deadly Sins collab. And I stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT plus 7 times, Sunday through Thursday. The link will be in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one.